breaking news from so many places around the globe right now. What's the response from Capitol Hill? Earlier, I spoke with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who, as you will very well remember, has never hesitated to take on President Trump. Here's his take on Trump's butting heads with the Australian Prime Minister.
The relationship is strong and can withstand a phone call. We'll be fine with Australia. You know, the 1,250 refugees that we're talking about, if they're well vetted, we can absorb them too. So, you know, he's been in job 2 weeks now, and the Australian Prime Minister seems to be okay with the way it ended. And the relationship is strong. My dad was stationed in Australia in World War II, and I served with an Australian unit over in Iraq and Afghanistan. So,
Trump tweeted about that deal that the Obama administration struck with Australia. He called it a dumb deal on Twitter. I mean, dumb deal or not, is that the way to handle it?
I wish he would sleep more and tweet less, but that's up to him. Whatever he's doing has worked for him. But, you're still President of the United States, and there's probably better ways to handle this. Instead of talking about this, we should be talking about Judge Gorsuch.
Well, he does like to talk about that. That is in the win column for him. I know you're very supportive of Judge Gorsuch. But let's go to another part of the world, because there's a lot going on today.
Yeah.
The president and his national security advisor are both now saying that they are formally putting Iran on notice. Those are their words after its ballistic missile test over the weekend. That sounds like a threat. But, Senator, from your view, what is the president threatening?
I don't know. Here's what I would suggest we do, that we impose sanctions on the regime for their violation of the UN missile test ban, for what they've done in the region, for capturing our sailors. New sanctions on the Iranian regime for their behavior throughout the region, apart from the nuclear program, is what I would do. I wouldn't put them on notice. I would go to the Congress and say it's now time to punish Iran for all the things they're doing in the region, including trying to test a new missile.
A senior advisor to the Ayatollah, he actually just put out a statement this morning saying, among other things, that they are going to vigorously continue their missile activity, and also saying that President Trump shouldn't make a toy out of himself, I think is how he put it. Where does this go from here, do you believe?
Well, the UN Security Council passed a resolution telling the Iranians stop developing missiles, long-range and short-range missiles that can disrupt the balance of power in the region. Iran has been a bad actor. They've basically toppled 4 Arab capitals. So it's just not Trump, it's the UN itself, credibility at risk. So here's what I would do. I've had it with the Iranians toppling pro-American governments throughout the region, being the largest state sponsor of terrorism, capturing our sailors, flaunting the missile test ban. It is now time for them to pay a price. They have a pair of twos. We have a full house. I don't want a war with Iran, but we want to make them stop.
Well, I mean, right along that line, you want them to stop. But what do you think Trump will do if Iran fires another missile?
Well, I think the world should not only condemn Iran, but we should have multinational sanctions against the regime for their continued violation of UN Security Council resolutions regarding their missile program. And here's what I would tell the president to do. The deal we have with Iran regarding their nuclear program is a bad deal. In 15 years, they can enrich and reprocess and make a bomb without even cheating. What I would like to see is peaceful nuclear power throughout the Mideast. This is a chance for Russia, China, the United States, maybe France, to build power plants throughout the entire Mideast for the Arabs and the Iranians, and we just control the fuel cycle so nobody can turn it into a bomb. That would be the offer I'd make the Iranians. If you want a peaceful nuclear power program, you can have it, but we're not going to give you the ability to enrich and reprocess uranium because you can turn it into a bomb.
Let's see what the next response is then from President Trump on this. Let me ask you about the travel ban. You've spoken out about it. You called it a self-inflicted wound in the fight against terrorism. The White House, though, right now doesn't even want to call it a ban anymore after some awkward back and forth. Why not, do you believe? What are they concerned about with regard to it being called a ban?
Well, I think the enemy has seized upon this. We're treating people all the same. The interpreter helped us in Iraq, and he's a hero in my mind. Got a young lady from Clemson who's from Iran, who graduated from Clemson, works in a startup company in Clemson, South Carolina, beloved by her colleagues and the entire Clemson University community. She was taken off a plane in Dubai. She had a legal visa. So what I would suggest is that people like her and the interpreter, people who've already been vetted with a visa, they not be treated as if they're a terrorist, because they're not. I do support a timeout in terms of future refugee flows from these countries until we get better vetting. We sort of screwed this up in the rollout.
Well, President Trump had a few choice words for you, not surprisingly, after you spoke out. He called you weak on immigration and that you're always looking to start World War III. What strikes me about the president's response on this one, though, Senator, is that there were a lot of Republicans that were critical of the president's executive order, but he singles out you and John McCain. Why do you think you get under his skin so much?
I don't know. I look forward to helping the president where we can. It's not being weak on immigration to have a system that can tell the difference between the young lady in Clemson, who is a valued added product to our country, the interpreter from Iraq who helped us, and a real terrorist. That's just being logical and having good common sense. I'm not trying to start World War III. I'm trying to win the war against radical Islam. And the worst thing you can do is declare war on the faith itself. And the way we've rolled out this executive order, we're catching people in the web that clearly are not terrorists, and that helps the enemy. So I would try to reform this executive order to focus on the problem, which is future flow coming from unstable failed states, which makes sense to me.
Well, but it doesn't look. The president isn't acknowledging any fault in the rollout. I mean, he's still calling it a success. There's no problem with the rollout that they've seen so far. I mean, if the president's not going to acknowledge that there was a problem in how they rolled it out, sure doesn't seem that they've shown any openness to reforming what they've put in place so far.
Well, I think General Kelly and Secretary Tillerson are on the case now. They're actually working with us to try to restore this young lady's visa. She went back to visit her mother.
Doesn't the buck stop with the president on this?
Totally. Totally. Here's what I would say. I would say that the rollout was flawed. The idea makes sense, a timeout in terms of future flow, but we got to have a system that can tell the difference between this young lady and an interpreter and a potential terrorist. It was screwed up, and that happens. The rollout with Gorsuch was terrific. Well done, Mr. President. There's a lot of things he's doing I support, but at the end of the day, when something happens on your watch as president, you're responsible for it, and it's his responsibility to fix this system in a way that we could all appreciate. And I think he can, and I hope he will.
Well, speaking of things that happened on his watch, there are new details out this morning, Senator, about that covert operation in Yemen where one Navy SEAL, Ryan Owens, was killed and a number of civilians were killed as well. You're on armed services. You get these briefings. What have you heard about the operation, Senator? Do you think it was approved with sufficient intelligence, with sufficient planning?
Yes, and unfortunately in war these things happen, and I really appreciate the fact that President Trump went to Dover, Delaware to be there when the body came home, to show respect for the fallen SEAL, to comfort his family. I think that goes a long way to our military members, to show that our Commander-in-Chief cares that much. Yeah. But yes, the operation I think was authorized properly, and these things happen in war, and I think overall we're going to have more of these operations, not less, because ISIL and Al-Qaeda, they're getting stronger, not weaker in certain parts of the world.
So coming up next, we're going to have more with Lindsey Graham. There's more to this conversation. Why he says Russia should be punished. Why the senator, though, is hopeful about the Trump presidency. And in just a few minutes, we are going to hear from House Speaker Paul Ryan. This as the Senate continues to try to push through President Trump's cabinet nominees. We will bring you Paul Ryan's remarks live. Plus, violence erupts on a college campus, protesters throwing fireworks, rocks, and more. And then President Trump threatened the university where this all took place.
Wish your skin could bounce back like it used to? Neutrogena Hydro Boost Water Gel instantly quenches skin to keep it supple and hydrated day after day. With hydrating hyaluronic acid, which retains up to 1,000 times its weight in water. This refreshing water gel plumps skin cells with intense hydration and locks it in. For supple, hydrated skin that bounces back. Hydro Boost from Neutrogena. See what's possible.
When a cold calls, answer it with Zicam Cold Remedy. It shortens colds so you get better faster. Colds are gonna call. Answer them with Zicam. Zicam, get your better back. Now in great tasting crystals.
There are over 47 million Ford vehicles out here. That has everything to do with the people in here. Their training is developed by the same company who designed, engineered, and built the cars. They've got the parts, tools, and know-how to help keep your Ford running strong. 35,000 specialists all across America. No one knows your Ford better than Ford and Ford Service.
Right now, get the works. A synthetic blend oil change, tire rotation, brake inspection, and more for $29.95 or less.
Do something.
Oh, I'm not a security guard. I'm a security monitor. I only notify people if there's a robbery. There's a robbery.
Why monitor a problem if you don't fix it? That's why free credit monitoring isn't enough to protect you from identity theft. At LifeLock, we not only alert you to identity threats, if you have a problem, we'll spend up to $1 million on lawyers and experts who'll work to fix it. LifeLock. Join starting at $9.99 a month.
Happening now? The Volumized Brow. New Brow Precise Fiber Volumizer from Maybelline, New York. Our first brow mascara with fiber-infused gel. Fills gaps, adds volume precisely. Maybelline's Brow Precise Fiber Volumizer. Make it happen. New York.
Are you missing out on life because you're putting off neck or back surgery? Call Laser Spine Institute, the leader in minimally invasive spine surgery, to learn how a less than 1-inch incision can have you up and walking within a few hours of surgery, free from chronic back pain, and with no hospital stay and no lengthy recovery. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with spinal stenosis, bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, or other chronic conditions, call today for your no-cost MRI review.
There were times my boss would send me home because I was in excruciating pain. Going to Laser Spine Institute, I go in, I have the procedure, and walk out a changed person, good to go back to work. I can't tell you how much happier I am. It's changed my life completely.
If you've been told you might need neck or back surgery, call 1-800-347-BACK now for your no-cost MRI review.
Laser Spine Institute, a less than 1-inch incision, a lifetime of standing tall.
Mom, I just saved a lot of money on my car insurance by switching to Geico.
I should take a closer look at Geico.
You know Geico can help you save money on your homeowner's insurance too?
Great! Geico can help insure a mountain chalet.
How long have we been sawing this log? 114 years.
Man, I thought my arm would be a lot more jacked by now.
I'm not even sure this is real wood.
There's no butter in this churn.
Do my tries look okay?
Take a closer look at Geico. Great savings and a whole lot more.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
We offer a free book on mesothelioma. Call for the free book and receive so much more. Call 1-800-831-3700.
One thing the Trump White House has said they want to move on from, investigating Russia's hacks during the election. One person who's definitely not moving on, Senator Lindsey Graham. He's now pushing for a new investigation. I asked him what more he wants to know.
I will never be satisfied until the Congress and the White House work together to punish Russia for trying to interfere with our election. I don't think they changed the outcome, but they clearly tried to manipulate the outcome. So the current sanctions are in place based on their taking of Crimea. There needs to be new sanctions imposed against Russia for interfering in our election. So I'm working with Democrats and Republicans to pass new sanctions. I hope the president will embrace them because Russia needs to be punished. I am in charge of the Crime and Terrorism Subcommittee on Judiciary, along with my ranking member, Senator Whitehouse. We're going to have an oversight hearing regarding the FBI and try to learn from the FBI what Russia actually did to see if we can validate the intel community's findings and tell the FBI to go after all things Russian and try to figure out how to prevent this in the future.
That's news that you're going to be pushing this, probably in, I assume, classified hearings.
Mostly.
Maybe not open, mostly. Are you going to have any open hearings on this, maybe?
Yeah, what I want to do is try to get people to come forward and explain what Russia's doing all over the world, not just in our backyard. What tools they have in the toolbox.
Touching on what they're doing in our backyard, do you fear at all that this sets you on a collision course with the White House? Because they want to move on, in their words, from these hacks.
I promise you this, I will not forgive and forget when it comes to what Russia did regarding our election. As a matter of fact, I've got a resolution I'm drafting up now to be offered soon that says an attack on one party by a foreign entity is an attack on all parties in the United States, kind of an Article 5 compact, that we're in this together, that when one party is compromised by a foreign entity, the whole process is compromised. So working with Senator Whitehouse, I want to find out what the Russians did in totality, go wherever the evidence takes us, try to prevent this in the future, and work with my colleagues in the Congress to deter Russian behavior. If Donald Trump, President Trump, forgives Putin for what he tried to do in our election, then that will scream weakness and the world will get a lot more unstable.
But what happens if you send him a sanctions bill and he doesn't sign it?
Then we'll override his veto. I believe.
Think you can?
I don't know. I believe that most Americans are offended by the fact that the Russians did hack into the DNC and Podesta's email. They did leak this to WikiLeaks. It was an effort to compromise and put doubt in our election, and they're doing it all over the world.
So tomorrow will be the 2-week mark for President Trump, his presidency. For you right now, are you more or less hopeful about this president since Inauguration Day, Senator?
I see a trend that is somewhat hopeful. I think the rollout of Gorsuch was well done. The pick of Judge Gorsuch was a home run. I actually recommended this man to be picked. So I thought the rollout, the pick was great. I think some of the executive orders are long overdue about deregulating the government. If we can repair the damage done with the executive order and get back on track and have a timeout to failed states in the future, then better days lie ahead. The infrastructure bill, I hope that comes soon. So things are trending a little bit better. I want to help the president where I can, but I'm very intent on being Senator Graham. And Senator Graham would push back against Russia no matter who was president, and I intend to do that.
And that might be the major bone of contention between you and President Trump. Senator Graham, hopeful, though, on this presidency. That's a headline. Great to see you, Senator. Thank you, as always.
Thank you.